Peace, everybody. Today I want to talk about overthrowing so-called white supremacy, so-called black people in America. The first thing you need to do in order to gain power is to find a black-owned financial institution, a black-owned bank, credit union, whatever, and put something into it. Just get either a primary or secondary account. You know, you should be ashamed of yourself if you're a so-called black American and you don't have at least one bank account in a black banking institution. One saving account, CD, certificate of deposit, whatever, auto loan, mortgage. Put something into a black bank, be it $100, 550, whatever. Now, if you use mathematics and you have at least 20 million eligible adults of so-called Negro descent, and you got $100 each, that is $2 billion into black institutions that could be used to finance endeavors, venture capitalist endeavors, you know, benevolent, philanthropical endeavors. But these FDIC insured banks can lend up to 10 times more than what they have in deposits. So that 2 billion just off $100 each times 20 million people will become 20 billion that could be used to finance so-called black endeavors, entrepreneurs, or whatever. I found a bank called Liberty Bank and Trust Company. Not Liberty Bank, you know, Liberty Bank is a Caucasian controlled bank, but the bank is actually called Liberty Bank and Trust. It is headquartered in New Orleans, Louisiana. They're located in 8 different states, and one of the states is Illinois, which is close to Chicago, the west side, and that is the branch that I'm dealing with. Now, I'm encouraging so-called black people, because you know these Caucasians, these Mexicans, and none of these other groups are going to put money into a black institution. Yet they all benefit off of the black people's struggle and plight. The Caucasian female should not get any type of affirmative action. They shouldn't be considered minorities because their issue isn't the same as black people's issue. The reason they weren't able to succeed wasn't the same reason so-called black Americans wasn't able to succeed. The reason so-called black Americans wasn't able to succeed was because overt outside oppression. It wasn't because we lacked the ability. Our ability was hindered and sabotaged, right? Now, if you go to court and sue a person for damages and you have an audience sitting back watching the case, and a judge actually find that the person who's being sued is liable to pay these damages to the person that's the victim, right? The judge don't give these damages to the people in the audience that's just been watching. They give these damages to the person who was directly affected by this person that was the perpetrator of whatever the person did. But in the so-called United States, all of these spectators sitting back watching a trial is getting paid the damages that is owed to so-called black Americans. The African, the Caucasian female, the homosexual, the Asian, all of these people who had nothing to do with the reason that we couldn't succeed, and the reason they couldn't succeed is not the same. The reason they couldn't succeed is because they just lacked ability. It wasn't like they have been being oppressed, especially if you came from another country, that when you were a sovereign country and you wasn't using your abilities to build up your own sovereign nation, or you might have had a different oppressor in your own nation, but your issue is with that oppressor. You can't come to America, the United States, and benefit off of somebody else's injury, but this is what has been allowed to happen. All of these people have been sitting back benefiting off of our claim, the same thing these ADOS people talk about. Our justice claim is with this particular government. These other groups has nothing to do with it. So they have been stealing money, and this government has been illegally allocating our damages to these groups of people at our expense. Now they say, okay, the African always talk about how come we come here and do better than y'all. For one, you're not doing better. That's subjective. For two, you're benefiting off of something that you have no claim to. You're stealing. That's called fraud. You're filling out fraudulent applications to get these resources, calling yourself a minority, and this government is committing a fraud by even giving it to you. But none of these people who's stealing the money that's owed to us will put money into these black banks. The money that they're stealing out of our community. So it's up to the so-called Negro to put their resources into these black financial institutions, empower them so they can turn around and empower us. Because what it really is you're just harnessing the magnitude, the masses of people's resources into one force, and you're able to aim that force and get things done quick, as opposed to having 20 million individuals scattering their resources into Caucasian-controlled institutions and all of these Caucasian, Arab, Mexican-controlled businesses, and you wonder why you're poor and in poverty. So the first step into so-called conquering and defeating so-called white supremacy is doing something that requires nothing but going to the website and opening up an online application and transferring a portion of your resources into a black bank.